In the world of work, there are few things more frustrating than hitting an invisible wall. And it's not a wall because you're incompetent or you're not trying hard enough. No, it's often a wall that's built because you're so good at what you do.
That's it exactly, Alera. We're calling it the promotion illusion. It is that maddening state where you're told you're a top performer, that you're next in line, only to watch from the sidelines while somebody else gets the role. It's a silent career killer, and in this deep dive, we're not just going to diagnose the problem, we're going to give you the tools to dismantle it piece by piece.
So it all starts with this quiet, undeniable certainty, doesn't it? It's that feeling that just settles deep in your gut. You look at what you do every day, and honestly, it feels easy now. You've mastered the tasks, you see the challenges coming a mile away, and you can picture that next level, the strategy, the leadership, the real impact, with perfect clarity. You know, without a doubt, you are ready.
But let's be real, it's more than that, isn't it? You're not just ready. You're probably already doing pieces of that next job, just quietly, without the title or the pay. You're the one your manager gives the trickiest client to. You're the one who ends up mentoring the new hires. And when a crisis hits, yeah, you're the unofficial expert everyone turns to for the real solution.
So you do everything right. You check every single box. You hit every target quarter after quarter. You volunteer for the tough projects nobody else wants. You stay late, not for the praise, but because the work just needs to be done right. You've literally built a fortress of evidence proving your capability beyond any reasonable doubt. You've made your case, and then the moment arrives. The promotion is announced in a team meeting, or maybe a company-wide email. You scan the text, your heart kind of pounds for a second, and it's not your name. It's someone else's. And the silence after that is just deafening. There's no clear explanation, no talk about a performance gap, just this quiet, brutal decision that leaves you standing exactly where you were. And that right there is the central question we're here to dissect. Because if it's not about your readiness, and it's clearly not about your performance, then what on earth is it about? Well, the answer isn't found by working even harder. The answer is found by finally understanding that you are not playing the game you think you are. It's time to stop looking at your own playbook and start analyzing the hidden rulebook of the organization itself. All right, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the question you can't ask and recognizing the pattern. Then we'll dive deep into the psychology of the system. After that, Alera is going to walk us through the internal toll this all takes, and we'll finish up with real strategy, breaking the illusion and making that final crucial shift from just being ready to being positioned.
Okay, Section 1, recognizing the pattern. Look, this illusion is powerful because it's built on a foundation of corporate language that sounds super reassuring, but is, well, ultimately hollow. So the very first step to breaking free is learning to spot the huge disconnect between the words you're being fed and the actions you actually see.
I bet you've heard these before. They're like the soothing lullabies of the promotion illusion. Think about it from your manager's side. They are low-cost, easy ways to keep things exactly as they are. You're next in line. Feels like a promise, right? But it's a promise with no timeline. Just a little more time sounds like a plan, but it's a plan with zero details. And the most dangerous one, keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like praise, but it's actually a cage. It validates your current performance to make sure it continues right where it is.
And what makes this whole thing so confusing is that those hollow words are often paired with very real signs of your value. You are given those critical responsibilities. You are trusted with the high-stakes stuff. You are seen as the dependable anchor of the team. But here is the critical misinterpretation. These are not signs that a promotion is coming. These are signs of how valuable you are to this system in your current role. The organization isn't rewarding you, it's leveraging you. And this slide just lays out that brutal gap between what you think is happening and what's really going on. On the left, your perfectly logical take. I'm seen as indispensable. I'm trusted with key projects. I've been told I'm next. And on the right, the system's cold, hard reality. While you feel indispensable, your name is quietly missing from the actual succession plan. While you're busy executing that key project, someone less experienced but maybe better connected is having the conversations that actually lead to a promotion. This cycle doesn't just repeat, it's a feature of the system, not a bug. And this brings us to the single most important distinction in this entire analysis. You have spent years becoming prepared. You have the skills, you've got the knowledge, you've got the experience. But being prepared is not the same as being positioned. See, being prepared is about your ability to do the job. Being positioned is about making sure the system sees more value in promoting you than in keeping you right where you are. They are two completely different games. Yeah, that distinction between prepared and positioned brings us directly to Section 2, the psychology of the system.
If readiness isn't the thing that decides it, then what is? To answer that, we have to stop analyzing your performance for a minute and start analyzing the hidden logic, the unspoken rules, and the risk calculations that are driving the organization itself.
You know, big organizations, they don't really operate like pure meritocracies. They operate like complex systems with their own internal logic. They don't promote based on a checklist. They promote based on a much fuzzier mix of factors. First, there's perception. How are you viewed by the leaders 2, even 3 levels above you? Then, timing. Does promoting you solve an immediate painful problem for the business right now? And maybe most importantly, narrative. What's the one-sentence story being told about you in those senior leadership meetings you're not invited to? Your readiness, that's just the ticket to get in the game. These other factors are what determine the winner.
Okay, let's get into the first and honestly most uncomfortable truth about this system. From a manager's perspective, promoting you isn't just a gain. It's also a huge loss. If you're the person who flawlessly delivers 110% in your current role, moving you up creates a gaping hole in their team's output. You're not just an employee, you're their secret weapon. And promoting you means disarming themselves.
And this happens because leaders are almost always pushed to optimize for short-term stability. Just think about it. Your career progression is a long-term, kind of abstract goal for them. Their quarterly business targets, that's a short-term, immediate fire they have to put out. So when they're faced with that choice, keeping their best operator in place to guarantee today's results is almost always the safest, most logical bet. Your excellence in your current role paradoxically becomes the biggest liability for your advancement.
This behavior is so common that we really need to give it a name. We're calling it strategic retention. Now, you're never going to see this term in an HR manual. It is an unspoken, often subconscious organizational habit. It's the rational decision to keep a high performer exactly where they are because their value there outweighs the perceived risk and disruption of promoting them. You are, quite literally, too good at your job to be promoted out of it.
And this strategic retention is reinforced by 3 unspoken rules of corporate life. First, visibility. Good work that you do in a silo is invisible. It has to be strategically showcased to the people who actually control budgets and headcounts. Second, advocacy. Visibility isn't enough. You need a powerful sponsor, someone who's going to argue your case in those closed-door talent meetings where the real decisions are made. And that's because of the third rule. Those rooms do not run on merit alone. They run on a complex calculus of risk, politics, and who's telling the best story.
So the final critical reframing is this: you are not being overlooked. Overlooked implies it was an accident, a mistake, a passive oversight. The reality is often far more active and intentional. You are being strategically retained. The system is making a calculated decision that your value, right here, right now, outweighs the value of promoting you.
So Kai just laid out the cold, rational logic of the system. But understanding that logic is only half the battle. Now, in Section 3, we need to talk about the human cost, the internal toll this illusion takes on the person caught inside it. Because this isn't just a career problem, it's a slow-acting psychological poison. It's about how this pattern silently reshapes your ambition, your confidence, and even your sense of self. And this psychological erosion, it happens in these predictable stages. Does this sound familiar to you? It starts with patience. You trust the process, you believe the promises. Then comes doubt. After being passed over once or twice, you start questioning yourself. Wait, what am I missing? That doubt then fuels stage 3, over-delivery. You double down, you work harder to build an absolutely undeniable case. But when that still doesn't work, all that effort just sours into resentment. And finally, you hit the most dangerous stage of all, normalization. You start to accept it. That fire of ambition starts to dim, and you begin to internalize this identity of just being a reliable number 2. And through every single one of those stages, from patience all the way to normalization, the same thing is happening right under the surface. Your professional confidence, which was once your greatest asset, is being silently eroded. Each promotion cycle that passes you by is like another small cut, and over years, those small cuts add up into a really deep wound to your sense of professional worth.
And as your confidence wanes, your motivation starts to fundamentally change. You're no longer driven by this pure desire for growth and mastery. Your energy shifts. It becomes about validation. You're no longer trying to be better, you're just trying to prove you're good enough. And that is an exhausting and completely unsustainable way to operate.
And this is the final, most insidious trap of the illusion. It starts as an external problem, a flaw in the system. But over time, it becomes an internal belief. You start to carry the narrative for them. You internalize their story that, well, maybe you just don't have what it takes.
And once you believe the illusion, it becomes your reality. And that is why breaking that belief is the absolute first step to escaping.
So, we've dissected the system and the toll it takes. How in the world do you break out? This brings us to Section 4, breaking the illusion. Because understanding the trap is totally useless if you don't have a plan to escape it. This is where we shift from analysis to action. And it requires a conscious, deliberate move from the passive state of waiting to an active state of strategic engagement.
The core command is simple to say, but really hard to do. You must stop waiting to be chosen. That mindset of just waiting for a fair system to finally recognize your merit is the very thing that keeps you trapped. It is time to become an active agent in your own career story.
Okay, here is a concrete 3-step action plan. Step 1 is visibility. And this isn't about bragging, it's about translating your work into the language of business impact. Revenue generated, costs saved, risks mitigated, and then strategically placing that information in front of the decision makers. Step 2 is to force clarity. The next time you hear one of those vague promises, you have to counter with a request for specifics. That's great to hear. Can we put a 6-month development plan in place to get me there? And this leads directly into step 3, directness. You have to schedule a meeting and ask the terrifying but necessary question. I am committed to reaching the next level. Based on my performance, what is the specific, measurable gap I need to close in the next quarter to be considered a leading candidate? This question forces an answer. They either give you a real plan or they reveal their hand that there isn't one.
But taking those actions, forcing clarity, being direct, that requires one final, fundamental change. And it's not a change in what you do, it's a change in how you think. This is the final mental shift, moving your identity from someone who is ready to someone who is positioned.
This slide just captures the entire mindset shift. The old passive mindset believes, my readiness is obvious. Good work speaks for itself.
While the new strategic mindset knows, my readiness is irrelevant if it's not positioned correctly. I have to create the narrative around my work.
The old mindset thinks, I need to patiently wait my turn.
The new mindset accepts, there is no turn. I have to create the opportunity.
And most importantly, the old mindset clings to this hope that the system is fair, while the new mindset understands that the system isn't fair or unfair. It's just a system, and it has its own logic. Your job isn't to judge it, your job is to master it.
And this brings us to the final, cold, systemic truth that underpins everything we've talked about today. It's not personal. It is not malicious. It is simply logic. If the system, with its laser focus on short-term stability, benefits from keeping you exactly where you are, it will continue to do so until the cost of keeping you there becomes greater than the risk of promoting you.
So ultimately, it really just comes down to this. The system, by its very nature, is designed for its own equilibrium. It has its own priorities, and it will not spontaneously change just to accommodate your ambitions.
So the final question isn't really for the system, it's for you. The organization is a constant in this equation. The only variable that you truly control is your own strategy. You've seen the illusion. You understand the logic. So the choice now is simple. Will you continue to be a pawn in its game, or will you change your position on the board?